The telegram arrived in Washington at 9:30 p.m. on February 24, 1917. British intelligence had decoded it 3 weeks earlier. They'd kept it secret the entire time. February 24, 1917. The decoded telegram sat on the desk of Edward Bell, the American embassy secretary in London. The British had broken German codes 2 years ago. They'd been reading German diplomatic traffic since 1915. This telegram was different. It was dated January 16th. Germany's Foreign Secretary Arthur Zimmermann had sent it to the German ambassador in Mexico City. The message: if America entered the war, Mexico should attack the United States. In return, Germany would help Mexico reclaim Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. The British had intercepted it on January 17th. Room 40, the Royal Navy's cryptanalysis unit, decoded it by January 19th. They'd sat on it for 5 weeks, not because they didn't understand its importance, because releasing it too early would expose their most valuable intelligence asset. Room 40 operated from the old Admiralty building in London. 40 codebreakers worked in a converted office space. They had access to every German diplomatic cable that crossed British-controlled telegraph lines. German messages routed through 2 cables, one across the Atlantic, one through Sweden. The British had cut the Atlantic cable in 1914. German traffic now traveled through neutral countries or British cables. Either way, Room 40 intercepted it. The unit was led by Admiral William Blinker Hall. He built Room 40 from 4 codebreakers in 1914-40 by 1917. They'd cracked multiple German cipher systems, but they had a problem. If they revealed what they knew, Germany would change their codes. Every intelligence advantage would vanish. The Zimmermann telegram put Hall in an impossible position. The message could bring America into the war. Britain needed American troops. German U-boats were sinking 600,000 tons of Allied shipping per month. Britain had food for 6 weeks. Without America, they'd lose. But if Hall handed the telegram to the Americans, Germany would know their codes were broken. They'd create new ciphers. Room 40 would go dark. Every U-boat position, every troop movement, every diplomatic communication, all of it would disappear. Hall had to make it look like the Americans discovered the telegram independently. He had 72 hours to build a cover story before the political window closed. Room 40 had decoded the telegram using 2 methods. The first was Codebook 0075, a German diplomatic cipher the British had partially reconstructed. The second was Codebook 13040, a newer system they'd broken 6 months earlier. The telegram had been encoded twice. Zimmermann sent it in 0075 from Berlin to Washington. The German ambassador in Washington re-encoded it in 13040 and forwarded it to Mexico City. The British had both versions, but they couldn't explain how they got either one. The version sent from Berlin traveled through British cables under American diplomatic cover. If they revealed they'd been reading American traffic, the diplomatic fallout would be catastrophic. Hall needed the Mexico City copy. That version traveled through commercial cables. The British could claim they'd intercepted it legally, but getting it required sending an agent to Mexico City to bribe telegraph company employees. That would take weeks. Hall didn't have weeks. On February 19th, Hall made his first move. He contacted Thomas Holer, a British diplomat in Mexico City. Holer had connections with the Mexican Telegraph Company. Hall asked for the original telegram, the one sent from Washington to Mexico City in Codebook 13040. Holer got it on February 20th. He bribed a telegraph clerk named Mr. H. The British files never recorded his full name. The clerk handed over the cable records. Holer photographed them and sent them to London by courier. The photographs arrived on February 23rd. Hall now had the Mexico City copy, but he still had a problem. Room 40 had decoded this version months ago using Codebook 13040. The Americans didn't have Codebook 13040. If the British handed over a decoded telegram, the Americans would ask how they'd cracked it. Hall needed to give the Americans the ciphertext and let them decode it themselves. But that meant providing just enough of Codebook 13040 to decode this specific message. Not so much that Germany would realize the British had broken their system, just enough to make it look like American codebreakers had figured it out. Hall's team spent February 23rd creating a partial code book. They pulled out the exact code groups used in the Zimmerman telegram. Nothing more. They prepared a memorandum explaining that Room 40 had recently acquired these specific codes. They implied the codes came from a German diplomatic pouch captured in Persia, a plausible lie. On February 24th, Hall handed everything to Edward Bell at the American Embassy. The ciphertext from Mexico City, the partial code book, the cover story about Persia. Bell cabled Washington immediately, but Hall had timed it wrong. February 24th was a Saturday. The telegram reached Washington at 9:30 p.m. The department was closed. No one saw it until Monday morning, February 26th, 2 days lost. On February 26th, the telegram landed on the desk of Secretary of State Robert Lansing. He read it twice. Then he walked across the street to the White House. President Woodrow Wilson read it. He asked one question: was it genuine? Lansing didn't know. The British claimed they'd intercepted and decoded it, but Wilson didn't trust British intelligence. The British had lied before, fabricated evidence, manipulated reports. Wilson wanted proof. Lansing had American codebreakers verify the decryption. They worked through February 27th. The partial codebook checked out. The message was real. Wilson now faced the same timing problem as Hall. He could release the telegram immediately. That would shift American public opinion toward war. But if he released it too soon, Germany might claim it was a British forgery. Wilson needed Germany to confirm it was real. He decided to wait. He gave the telegram to the Associated Press on February 28th with instructions to publish on March 1st. That gave Germany 24 hours to respond. If they stayed silent, the silence would confirm authenticity. If they claimed forgery, Wilson would produce the original cable records. The Associated Press published at 11:00 a.m. on March 1st. Front page. Every major newspaper in America ran it. The headline: Germany seeks alliance against U.S. The reaction was immediate. Anti-war senators demanded proof. Pro-war groups called for immediate mobilization. The German embassy in Washington denied everything. They called it British propaganda, but Hall had planned for this. On March 3rd, Arthur Zimmerman held a press conference in Berlin. He confirmed the telegram was real. He'd sent it. He'd offered Mexico an alliance. He defended it as a defensive measure. If America attacked Germany, Germany had the right to seek allies. The confirmation destroyed any remaining American neutrality. Zimmerman had authenticated the telegram himself. No one could call it a forgery now. But Hall had created a second timing problem. The American public wanted war immediately. Congress was ready to vote. But Wilson needed one more thing. He needed Germany to commit an act that justified war. The Zimmerman telegram proved German hostile intent. It didn't prove German hostile action. Wilson was a legalist. He needed Germany to attack American interests. Then he could go to Congress. He got it on March 18th. German U-boats sank 3 American merchant ships. The timing was accidental. German Naval Command had no idea about the telegram's release, but it sealed the decision. Wilson asked Congress for a declaration of war on April 2nd. The Senate voted 82-6 in favor on April 4th. House voted 373-50 on April 6th. America entered World War I. The timeline was brutal. January 16th, Zimmerman sent the telegram. January 19th, Room 40 decoded it. February 24th, Hall gave it to the Americans. 5 weeks of silence. February 26th, Wilson saw it. 2 days of verification. March 1st, public release. March 3rd, Zimmerman confirmed it. March 18th, U-boat attacks. April 6th, war declaration. 11 weeks from interception to war. Every day Hall waited, more Allied ships sank. Every day Wilson waited, more Americans stayed out of uniform. But if either man moved too fast, the intelligence advantage disappeared or the political will collapsed. Germany never learned the British had broken their codes. Zimmerman's confirmation convinced German intelligence that someone in the Mexican telegraph company had leaked the physical cable. They never suspected Room 40. They kept using codebook 0075. and Codebook 13,040 for another year. Room 40 kept reading German traffic until November 1918. They tracked every U-boat movement. They decoded every diplomatic communication. They knew Germany was preparing for armistice talks before the German public did. The American Expeditionary Force landed in France on June 26, 1917. By November 1918, 2 million American troops were in Europe. Germany signed the armistice on November 11th. The war ended. The Zimmermann telegram is remembered as the message that brought America into World War I. That's true, but the real story is the timing. Hall had the decoded telegram on January 19th. He released it on February 24th. 5 weeks where he controlled when America learned about it. 5 weeks where he built a cover story to protect Room 40. 5 weeks where he chose American entry into the war over immediate intelligence disclosure. If Hall had released it on January 20th, Germany would have changed their codes immediately. The British would have lost access to German communications. The war might have dragged into 1919. More casualties, more starvation, different outcome. If Hall had waited until April, the political moment would have passed. American isolationists would have regained momentum. Wilson might not have gotten his war declaration. Hall threaded the timing perfectly. He waited long enough to build a plausible cover story. He moved fast enough to catch the political window. He manipulated the release to ensure Germany confirmed it themselves. Every piece of timing was deliberate. Most intelligence operations stay classified for decades. This one became public because Zimmermann confirmed it himself. He authenticated the telegram that exposed his own conspiracy. Room 40 role stayed secret until the 1930, when the British government declassified portions of their WWI files. The lesson wasn't about code breaking. Room 40 had been breaking German codes since 1914. The lesson was about timing. Intelligence is worthless if you can't use it without exposing how you got it. Hall had to choose between immediate advantage and long-term capability. He chose both by controlling when the information became public. After the war, American and British cryptographers met to compare notes. The Americans learned they'd been reading each other's cables the entire time. The British had been intercepting American diplomatic traffic since 1915. The Americans had been intercepting British traffic since 1916. Neither side told the other. Both sides kept it quiet. The Zimmermann telegram became a case study in intelligence timing. It's taught at Fort Meade and Langley. The question it poses: when do you burn your source to use the intelligence? The answer Hall gave: when the political window is open, the cover story is solid, and the target will confirm it themselves. Stories like this don't make it into most history classes because they require explaining how intelligence actually works: the waiting, the verification, the cover stories, the timing. If you think these kinds of detailed war stories deserve a bigger audience, subscribe to Chronos Combat and share this video. These operations get forgotten when we focus only on the battles. January 16, 1917, Zimmermann wrote the telegram. January 19th, Room 40 broke it. February 24th, Hall released it. 5 weeks of silence was all it took to change the war.